Hi SILEM stars, welcome back to my channel. SILEM here. If you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe down below. It's free and it helps my channel grow. In today's video guys, I'm going to teach you all how to make a shift dress with velvet design in front and pockets by the side. So if you want to see how to make this lovely shift dress, definitely keep on watching.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you there.
So now as you can see, I've gone ahead to fold my fabric and I'm going ahead now to check the length that I want. So for the length I want it to be 44 inches. I'm going to be cutting the front piece first. Now from the fold, I'm going to mark 1 inch. The reason why we're marking 1 inch is because of the slits that this dress has. Okay, this is not the zipper allowance, this is for the slit, and this is the front piece. So from the fold, just mark 1 inch, okay, that we're going to use for the slit allowance. Now from that line, all your measurements will be taken outwards. So from that line, I'm just marking my shoulder measurements divided by 2. Then I'm also marking the length of the sleeve. The length of the sleeve I'm using is 10 inches. I added 1 inch to that to make it 11 inches. Okay, so the 1 inch added to the sleeve will serve as the allowance. Now from that line again, I'm going to mark my neck width. The neck width I'm using is 3 inches. Okay, and then the neck depth I'm using is 6 inches. Honestly, the neck width and neck depth you decide to use depends on you, depending on how high or low you want your neckline to be. So I'm just connecting both points to create a V neckline. Okay, now from that baseline, I'm going to mark 1 inch downwards. Okay, and then I'm going to connect that to the neck width in order to create the shoulder slope. Now that we have that, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mark our vertical measurements. The first vertical measurement I'm marking is the bust point, which is 12 inches, and I'm also marking the waistline, which is 18 inches. I'm also marking the hip line, 24 inches. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and extend all those lines. Now on the bust point line, and I'm just marking the bust circumference divided by 4. I'm marking that on that bust point line, and then I'm adding 2 inches allowance to that. On the waistline, I'm dividing the waist circumference by 4, marking that on the waistline, and I added 2 inches allowance. You can also use 1.5 inches allowance if you want. On the hip line, I'm dividing the hip circumference by 4, marking that on the hip line, and I'm adding my 2 inches allowance. Now I'm just connecting all 3 points. And I'm going to measure what I have on the hip line, and I'm going to mark that same measurement on the hem, because this is actually a straight gown from the hip. If you want yours to be pencil, you can also remove a few inches from your hip and mark that at the hem. That would work as well because this dress has a slit. Now from that shoulder slope, I'm going to come down by my round sleeve divided by 2. Okay, so the round sleeve of my client is 18 inches divided by 2 gave me 9 inches. So I'm just marking that. You can also add allowance to this as well. And then I'm just connecting the shoulder slope and the round sleeve part with a straight line. So as you can see, I added ½ inch allowance to the sleeve, okay, just so that it's not too tight. Now I'm just going to fold my piece right along that slit line. Okay, I'm going to fold it right along the slit line so that I can cut my neck without the slit allowance getting in the way. Okay, so just fold your piece like this and then cut out your neck, and this is what you're going to have. Okay, this is the right way to cut a neckline like this with slits. After that, I'm going ahead to cut the rest of the piece, and then I'm also cutting along that slit allowance as well. Now for the back piece, I'm also marking the same length, which is 43 inches. And then from the fold, now I'm going to mark the zipper allowance, which is 1.5 inches. This is the back piece and it has the zipper allowance of 1.5 inches on the fold. Okay, but for the front, remember that we marked 1 inch for the slit allowance. Okay, so that's the difference. Now from this zipper allowance, I'm going to mark my neck width, which is also 3 inches, same with the front. And then my neck depth is 1.5 inches. I'll connect both points with a curve like so to create the neckline. Then I'm going to cut along that. After cutting the neckline, I'm going to place my front piece on top of my back piece, making sure that the slit allowance on the front and the zipper allowance on the back, making sure that those lines align. Okay, so make sure that those allowance line, make sure that they align for the front and the back. Once you have them aligned, you can go ahead and just use the front piece as a template to just cut the back piece. Okay, so the only difference between the front piece and the back piece is the neckline and the allowance along the fold. Okay, so now that we're done with that, this is practically done. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and cut along that zipper allowance for the back. Okay, remember that this is the back piece, so I'm cutting along the zipper allowance for the back. Now in order to remove any form of zipper bulging at that waistline, I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch, okay, from the edge of the fabric, and I'm going to connect that upwards and downwards. Okay, so upwards to the bust points where we have the bust point line like so, and then I'm also going to connect it downwards towards the hip. Okay, so this is going to remove any form of zipper bulge and also make the back fit very, very well. Once I've marked that, I'm just going to cut out that piece by following that line that I marked. Now, the next thing we're going to mark is the pockets, okay? And as you can see now, the piece of fabric I have here is 7 inches wide. So I'm just creating a curve like so. So just look at the way the curve is. So once I'm done creating the curve, the opening on one side is now 6 inches, which is wide enough for the hands to pass through. Okay, so this is what your pocket should be. Now for the length of the pocket, this is about 9 inches. You can make your pocket 10 inches. You can also make it less than 9 inches, okay, maybe 7 inches, okay. But for me, the length of my pocket is 9 inches and the width is 6 inches on one side and 7 inches on the other side. So I simply cut 4 pieces of the pocket that I'm going to attach. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew along that zipper allowance for the back in order to join the 2 back pieces together. Now when I'm joining the back pieces together, I'm just going to mark the space where I want my zipper to be attached, so that later on I can loosen it and add my zipper. Okay, now for the front piece, from the hem you want to go ahead and mark 7 inches upwards. Now this is how high your slit is going to be. If you want your slits to be higher, you can also mark that. Now from the top, from the neckline there, I'm going to sew all the way down to that point I marked for my slits, and that will be it for my front piece. Okay, now for my back piece, I've gone ahead to join the back pieces together like so. This is what it looks like. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to loosen the part where I marked for my zipper. I'm going to loosen that part on the seam, and then I'm going to add my zipper to it. This is the front piece. This is what it looks like once I've joined the pieces together, and that is what the slit looks like at the bottom. The next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up the allowance, and then I'm going to fold in the edge of the allowance inwards like this. Okay, just fold it neatly with about 1/2 inch, put a 1/2 inch inwards and fold it, and then go ahead and sew it from top all the way to bottom. Okay, after doing that, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a regular bias tape to pipe the neckline, just a normal bias tape. And as you can see, I've gone ahead to just sew the allowance down, which will also secure the slits in place as well. So now once we're done, this is what we have. Now we're going to use our velvet bias. So this is what the velvet bias looks like. It is 1 inch wide. There's also the one that's 1/2 inch wide, but for this tutorial I'm using the one that's 1 inch wide because that is what is in the style inspiration. So what you're going to do is you're going to place the velvet bias like so on both sides of that center seam, okay? And then go ahead and cut off the excess. Make sure you're placing this from the neck all the way to the hem, okay? So do this on both sides. Make sure you're doing this on both sides of that center seam. And then after placing it, all you have to do is just pin them in place, okay? So just pin them down so it's easy for you to just sew, okay? So you're going to sew from top to bottom on both sides of the bias tape, okay? And then once we're done, this is what we have. Look at how neat it looks, and I love how dark the velvet bias is. It looks really nice, okay? So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in our pockets. So from the shoulder, I'm just going to mark the waistline, which is 18 inches. So just mark your waistline. If you want your pocket to be lower, you can also go down by 1 or 2 inches from the waistline before you attach your pocket. But I'm fine with attaching the pocket from the waistline downwards, okay? So I'm just placing the pocket right sides facing with the front piece like so, and I'm going to join them. I'm going to join the pocket to that side of the front piece. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Place the pocket like so, right sides facing, and then I'm going to pin the pocket to the dress on that side, and then I'm going to join it with just with 1/2 inch seam allowance, okay? For the back piece, we're going to do the same. As you can see, I've put in my zipper for the back piece, and from the shoulder I'm also marking that waistline, which is 8 inches. I'm going to place the pocket right sides facing like so. I'm going to pin it down, and then I'm going to join the pocket to the dress with 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'll do the same thing for the other side as well. So I'm just going to sew the pockets to the sides. After joining, this is what it looks like, as you can see. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to place the front piece. I've also joined the pockets on the front piece as well. So we'll just place the front piece right sides facing with the back piece, okay? So make sure that the right sides of the front and back are facing each other. Now I'm going to join them along the shoulders. So after joining them along the shoulders, this is what we have. The next thing I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hem the sleeve, okay, by folding it twice and sewing it down, okay? So you can also pin it so that it's easy for you to take it to your sewing machine and sew it. I'll do the same thing for the other side. Just fold it twice. You can fold it in with 1/2 inch twice or with 1 inch twice, depending on how wide you want the hem to be. So once we're done with that, the next thing now is just to sew them along the sides. So as you can see, I'm sewing from the sleeve down around the pocket and all the way to the hem. So from the sleeve down, I'm going to sew around the pocket and all the way down, okay? And after that, this is what we have. Can you see? I love how beautiful this turned out. Now, as you can see, our pocket is nicely attached to the side, and it's so beautiful, guys. The next thing we're going to do now is obviously hem the bottom part of this piece, and this is the finished look. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you all in my next video.